Alright, I'm going to try my best to keep this one short and to the point. If you come across anyone claiming that critical race theory is only a legal framework, or that it's simply a theoretical lens to look at things in the world of law, I would urge you to share this video with them. So two things real quick. If anyone claims that critical race theory only exists in law, they're number one, wrong, but number two, and to be fair to them, their wrongness is not rooted in nothing. When critical race theory was being developed in the 1970s, it came directly out of critical legal theory. It really did exist in the context of law and not much else at that time. This changed, though, and the change took place from critical race theory advocates themselves. We can start with Gloria Ladson-Billings, a proponent of critical race theory. In 1995, so that's more than 2.5 decades ago, she wrote, quote, towards a critical race theory of education. In this, she is directly using critical race theory to talk about education and suggesting that they should use it to examine that and look at it through a racial lens. And also, in this, she uses what she refers to as a critical race story, which is basically anecdotal evidence to try and prove some of her points. This all lines up with the critical race theory emphasis on stories and the utilization of lived experience as a means to advance a narrative. She is outwardly using critical race theory in a non-legal context. If that's not enough, you can look up lectures she's done online. There's a few of them. In them, she's citing critical race theory directly to explain all sorts of different occurrences, whether it was Obama winning the presidency or the Arizona governor giving in to pressures from the NFL because they wouldn't come to Arizona because the governor didn't want to recognize MLK Day one year because the state couldn't afford any more unpaid vacations for state workers. So she talks about interest convergence, which is an idea found all over in CRT publications, which, long story short, it's when progress is made because the interests of whites and blacks converge, and they use this to explain a whole slew of things. In this article that actually references Ladson-Billings, who I just mentioned, CRT is used to explain how the interests of whites and other races converged, and that's why different languages were taught in schools. I shouldn't need to mention this, but this is well outside the realm of law. Moving on, in this paper by Daniel Solorzano, who's a professor of education, quite literally says he's using critical race theory as a framework to discuss microaggressions in the academic and social collegiate environment. This has nothing to do with law, but critical race theory has its use for them still. This professor has also written a book called Racial Microaggressions, using critical race theory to respond to everyday racism, and that book is cited in several different CRT research papers. So I'm going to repeat the name of that book, Racial Microaggressions, using critical race theory to respond to everyday racism. Everyday racism. That seems about as all-encompassing as you can get. I'm not really sure how, after reading something like that, you can say this only has to do with applications to the field of law. Also, moving on, this is a paper written by Tara Yasso, a professor that focuses on critical race theory in education and access. This paper talks about a lot of different things and how CRT is used in many different ways, and it addresses many different but very similar offshoots of CRT, but really in how it's just applied to different people. It includes Asian crit, Fem crit, Latin crit, tribal crit, white crit, and talks about how CRT can be used to address and examine immigration status, sexuality, culture, language, phenotype, accent, and surname. Again, that's a lot more than just law. Lastly here, this paper quotes Derek Bell and Crenshaw, which are big names in the CRT circles, obviously. They say critical race theory starts from the premise that race and racism are central, endemic, permanent, and a fundamental part of defining and explaining how U.S. society functions. Society encompasses more than just law, so I don't think I need to say that, but I will. Because again, this is far more expansive than just some legal framework. It goes on to say that critical race theory acknowledges the inextricable layers of racialized subordination based on gender, class, immigration status, surname, phenotype, accent, and sexuality, which is similar to what I said before. It also mentions that critical race theory challenges white privilege and neutral or objective research, and it challenges it by exposing how it silences, ignores, or distorts the knowledge or epistemology of people of color. Now, okay, that is insane, but for the purposes of this video, I will leave it at that to show you that those people who say critical race theory only has to do with law, it's only this little niche thing found in the law classroom sometimes, they are outright wrong when they say that. It has everything to do with the outlandish rhetoric that surrounds us on all sides today. But that is all for now. Like, subscribe, share this video. It's extremely appreciated, and you take it easy.